Winthrop. That's my upset team.
You got Winthrop, huh? They're playing
Winthrop,
Villanova.
yeah. Villanova, yeah. Villanova, their guard got hurt.
Cole
Yep.
Missing
Gillespie.
this. Yeah, so and Winthrop's like 26-1, and I'm all in on what I don't even know what they are, but I'm all in on Winthrop. I don't know what their nickname is, but let's go Winthrop.
Time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. And now, the starting lineup for your Chicago Bulls. The 40, the 30, the 20, the 10, and into the touchdown.
Welcome back to week 3 of the Shy Sports Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Max, joined by my co-host, Kyle, and our producer, Tyler. We got a special guest this week, Andy Martinez, Cubs analyst with Marquee Sports Network. Andy, thanks for coming on the show and joining us.
Thanks, guys. It's fun. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to talking a little bit of Cubs and getting into the details about spring training and some of the futures and what we think about the Cubs' chances this year and where we think they're going to land in 2021.
Yeah, let's do it. It's a fun season for sure. We'll see what happens with the Cubbies, and I think it's gonna be an interesting season for sure. A lot to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of gambling talk, a lot of hammering the over. So let's fucking get after it.
All good things.
All about the overs.
All about the over.
The overs should be easy to hit this year. A lot of the Cubs over-unders are low.
Yeah, I know we'll get into it, but the overs, like, yeah, I mean, I'm an over guy to begin with, but like, this is like no-brainer over city.
Right, for sure. All right, Kyle, you want to get into some of the tweets that happened this week?
Yeah, so we'll start off with a little Bears talk here. So 2 tweets that we had this week for the Bears were, first, it was March 10th, 2017. On that date, the Bears signed Mike Glennon to a 3-year, $45 million deal.
I'm glad you started with this one. I wanted to feel sick first.
Yeah, it can only go up from here, right? So Glennon, 3-year, $45 million. He made $18.5 million guaranteed, and he only made 4 starts this year.
He made 4 starts in 2017.
Talk about snake it till you make it.
Right. I almost want to say good for him. If I wasn't a diehard Bears fan, I'd be happy for him.
I just want to know who his agent is. Like, I want that guy. Like, that for 4. Like, if any of us worked 4 times ever and got paid $18.5 million, we're doing something right.
Right. You think it might be Rachel Luba?
Yeah, shit. It might be.
Yeah, it could be.
So, but yeah, Glennon with the Bears was in those 4 starts. He was 1-3, threw 5 picks, 208 yards passing per game. Seems like seems like he probably earned his $18.5 million. He showed up every day.
Yeah, I mean,
you remember
collected a paycheck.
Right.
The very first game of that year, they were playing the Falcons. Do you remember that? I think it was the year after the Falcons went to the Super Bowl and blew that 28-3 lead. So week 1.
Yeah.
John Fox era.
The John Fox era. At home against the Falcons, Glennon led a 4th quarter drive down into the red zone, 1st and goal. He had a pass. I'm going to say it was Zach Miller, or I'm not sure who it was, but he had, with like a minute left, not even a minute left, to take the lead, and the guy fucking dropped it. And he had 2 passes like that where guys dropped it. He had a game-winning drive against the reigning NFC champions.
Yep. Was Forte still on the team then? Because I want to say Forte dropped one of the passes, or maybe it was Jordan Howard. But I was at that game.
Jordan Howard.
I was sitting up in the nosebleeds with the fam at that game. I had my Zubas on. I was completely sold and all in on another Bears regular season or opening day. I was completely bamboozled into believing that they could take us to the promised land.
I told Kyle this, but like every year I'm like, I'm not even going to pay attention to the Bears. They're not going to be good this year. And then week 1 set, like, it rolls up, 12:05 or 12 o'clock kickoff. I'm there at 11:55 a.m. and I'm like, this is the year. Bears are going to do it.
Jersey.
Yeah, and then I'm like, after they inevitably lose, it's like, well, like I knew this. Why did I like psych myself up for just disappointment?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what Kyle and I have been talking about with the Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson situation too.
That's what it's going to be.
It's maddening, honestly. And
Right.
we were talking about this last week. It's just like every time there's that new quarterback, until that guy sucks, it's like, oh, Mike.
There's always that glimmer of hope.
There's not enough tape of him.
Because I vaguely remember people were like, hey, this Glennon signing might be pretty good because of that drive. Like I vaguely remember like the sports talk the next day. Everyone was like, well, like if he completes those, then we're all talking about him as like whatever. And then, 4 games.
Right.
That was just me calling in the Waddle and Sylvie.
So yeah, the contract sounds worse than it really was. I mean, like we said, he got his 18.5 mil to make 4 starts in 2017, but they cut him at the end of that season, so he didn't get paid out the rest of his contract. But
where was he at before the Bears? Was he with Tampa?
He
was with
I thought he was
Tampa,
with Tampa. Yeah.
And then where did he go after that?
He bounced around as a backup. I think he was on Oakland.
I know he was with the Cardinals at one point, but yeah, Cardinals, and then I believe he was the 3rd string now in Oakland. But
he definitely stands behind everyone on the sidelines. Dude's got the longest neck I've ever seen.
Yeah, shit, seriously. Is there a better?
You know where he is right now?
In Oakland, yeah, he's in Oakland. I just looked it up. Or he
was.
was.
I thought he was in Jacksonville.
Oh no, you're right, Jacksonville. This is Jacksonville.
Yeah.
2019.
Quarterback purgatory either way.
Right.
He was almost gonna. Or did he start against the Bears this year?
I don't think so.
I remember that.
If any of those teams had their way, he would never take another starting snap again.
Do you think there's a better position in pro sports than being a backup quarterback?
Bullpen catcher. Easy question.
I was leaning towards bullpen catcher.
No, it's definitely backup quarterback because you're getting paid a good chunk of cash to be a backup quarterback. A bullpen catcher, you're probably making less than 6 figures, and you're
What about
constantly on the road with the team?
What about a backup goalie? Like on a good team, obviously.
So I'd still go backup quarterback. One, because look at the money that Glennon got that one.
Right.
True.
And backup goalie, it's like you're always, especially during the season, it's not like a backup quarterback where you're only in if this guy's injured. Like you're still playing. Like
you got to think punter is a great position too.
Punter. 12th man on it.
Those guys can't
on
get
the
touched.
NBA roster.
They're really not allowed to get hit at all. And if a guy makes a bad punt, you're not sitting there looking at him like, wow, this guy, in all likelihood, he's not going to ruin the game.
I say 12 man on the NBA roster. Like, I'm not saying that that's it, but I'm like arguing for it because of just how high like the salary cap is and the league minimum for veterans is. And as a 12 man, like unless your team's down 50, you're not going in. So
right. You're kind of just sitting there cracking jokes with all the dudes on the sidelines.
High-fiving dudes.
Maybe going out if you're traveling to Miami or something, you're going out in Miami the night before.
Yeah, that's not bad, I guess.
Kyle Orton, when he was in Dallas, there was a video of him packing a massive bomb. He just throws in a lip on the sidelines.
Shocker.
Right.
Talk about the least surprising news.
The things I would do to have Kyle Orton back. I never thought I would say that.
His neck beard.
Yeah.
So know what I was thinking? I keep catching myself daydreaming about Russ, but I was thinking, so he's a Wisconsin guy, right? Big Ten quarterback. Was Kyle Orton the last Big Ten quarterback to play for the Bears?
That's a good trivia question.
Think Cutler.
Cutler went to
Vanderbilt.
Caleb Haney didn't play collegiate ball.
Mitch, North Carolina.
The only other guy I can remember before that didn't Craig Krenzel go to
Ohio State?
Yeah. That's about the only guy I can remember.
Right.
And then
big time.
Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback for a bit. He went to Michigan. Besides that, yeah. How many that's interesting.
That's a great bar trivia question for the Bears.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to the
So yeah, I just want, before you head into anything else, I want to hit on Russell Wilson and see if you're still daydreaming after I fill you in on what Colin Cowherd said it might cost them to get him in a Bears uniform. And Colin Cowherd has some pretty hot takes sometimes, so I don't know what if I should believe this or not, but he's saying that it could cost 5 first-round picks, kind of like a Ricky Williams type trade to get him into Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's clickbait, him saying that.
Right.
I can't imagine trading 5 first rounders.
He said the Bears are going to make them an offer they can't refuse. My head immediately went to The Godfather.
5 first rounders, like, come on. I don't even think Ryan Pace. I don't think is that even legal? Is that
Do
legal?
they have 5 first round picks? Haven't they been trading away like the last first round picks for anything they can get?
That's
Right.
just a future problem. Like, you know what? We'll deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be GM in 2033.
Right.
Send them.
Right, he
Send
doesn't
those
give a
picks.
I'll give you our first round picks from 2026 to 2033 because guess what? I'm not going to be here.
I hate to say it, but that's kind of what Theo did with the farm system to the Cubs too. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to trade our entire crop of decent prospects for big league talent. I'm not going to be around for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, but they were at least were like making championship games, like or
right. 90 win season.
Yeah, the Bears were fucking 8-8 this year.
Right.
Hey,
No
they made the playoffs,
quarterback.
though.
Yeah, I mean they did have the MVP, so
If you talk to George McCaskey, he might tell you that 8-8 is right where he wants to be. I'm surprised they didn't hire Jeff Fisher to be their coach.
Spin Zone, they haven't been under 500 in the past 3 years. 12-4, 8-8, 8-8.
After starting 5-1 this year, it felt like they were under 500.
They may as well have been 4-12.
Right.
Like that just, yeah, didn't feel like it.
I guess on a positive note, they took a step in the right direction by franchise tagging Allen Robinson.
Yes, perfect segue here. So that leads us into our next tweet where on today, March 14th, but in 2018, the Bears signed Allen Robinson to a 3-year, $42 million contract. In his 3 seasons in Chicago, 255 receptions, 3,151 yards, and 17 touchdowns.
That's fun.
It's not bad.
There's a reason that people have been saying pay the man.
I mean, he's been pretty durable too. He was coming off an ACL.
Yep, he tore his ACL in Jacksonville.
I was skeptical of that signing when they made him because I thought off a torn ACL, you don't know the quarterback. Like you really didn't know the quarterback situation at that time. Like this could just blow up in your face. And hey, I was wrong. So
right, I agree. I was kind of thinking the same thing. You know, the knee injury is scary in football. You never know how a guy's going to bounce back from that. But I mean, he bounced back in the best way ever. I saw a stat recently. I don't know exactly what it was, but he had some crazy low number of drops on balls thrown his way over the past couple of years with the Bears.
I thought I saw that same stat and the number was 0.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, it could have been.
Might have been from this year specifically, but regardless.
So yeah, he's tagged, which is great that he's going to be in a Bears uni next year, regardless of who's under center. But hopefully that's a little bit of extra ammo or extra motivation for Russ to want to come to play for the Bears. But I definitely like that 3-year
franchise tender though, or the franchise tag tender. And that's just, I think that's more posturing in the sense he's still trying to get a longer term deal.
Yep.
Oh, it's like, I'm not going to sign this until you.
It's like what Jack Flaherty did with the Cardinals in
Mhm.
St. Louis. Same concept, I guess.
I'm really not sure what the issue is with the front office and Allen Robinson. You know, it seems like there's some kind of animosity there, but the guy has really proven that I think he's at least a top 10 talent at the position in the NFL, maybe better than that. The guy catches in traffic. He is a possession receiver who can also stretch the field. He's kind of he does it all.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, I'm a huge Allen Robinson fan. I would take him on my team 8 days a week.
No matter who's at quarterback too. So,
well, speaking of extensions, did you see Cordero Patterson's his tweets this week?
Not all of them, but he is the best ambassador for the Bears. Maybe for Bears fans, actually.
Well, he tweeted, ready to see where I'm playing next year with a couple dancing emojis. He's replying to the Bears tweet saying like extend CP. Like he wants to play with the Bears. And in that tweet, ready to see where I'm playing next year, Tariq Cohen says, he replies, damn, I never thought I'd have to recruit my own GM. Like, in what world would you not want Cordero Patterson? He's just like the ultimate. He's like I'm trying to think of like
how about them Bears?
He's a utility player. Realistically, he's a fucking utility player.
You've seen him in the post game too, right after the Bears win, when he's run into the locker room. Yeah,
great
he's
kickoff
like
returner.
he's like a Swiss Army knife for sure.
If you were to compare him to a baseball player, who would you compare him to?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm trying like I'm thinking someone like Kike Hernandez from the Dod. Well, he's not with the
Yes.
Dodgers anymore, but like just a dude. It's like, all right, we need someone to play second today. We need someone to play right today. I think what was it? The only position Kike Hernandez hasn't played in an official game is catcher. Because I remember there was a huge hashtag movement with the Dodgers, like let Kike catch. So
That
same
is a good
concept.
one. I feel like this would be a bit of a reach, but kind of like Ben Zobrist. Obviously,
That would be a good
Zobrist
one.
was, a World Series MVP and one of the best switch hitters of all time. But
Yeah, but
he
Zobrist
kinda
could
would just
hit anywhere in the lineup.
hit anywhere in the lineup, play any position. He didn't care. He kind of was just there to help the team win.
Like when you think of Ben Zobrist, what position do you think he was? Like what do you think his main position was?
Second
Baseball
base,
player.
but I mean, he can play third. He played corner outfield. I think he might have played first.
He was in left field during the final out in Game 7 in 2016. So like,
Right.
he obviously isn't too shabby out there. He
Yep.
might have played left a decent amount that whole series, to be honest.
And that's the thing with Patterson is like he'll return a kick for a touchdown, and then 2 plays later they'll see him making a tackle on the kickoff or on the Bears kickoff.
Yeah.
And in that play between, he'll or not the play between, but like a couple plays later, he'll run the ball for a 7-yard carry or something.
Right.
Yeah. And he's
hopefully not on 4th and 1, but that's not his problem. That's Matt Nagy's.
Oh my! Don't even get me started. He on his thighs. I know this is gonna kind of a little weird, but he has the biggest thighs.
Kyle's always got great body analysis of the Chicago athletes. Andy, you weren't on the last episode or 2 episodes ago, but Kyle couldn't stop talking about Jamal Myers with his shirt off.
No, Johnny Oduya.
Oh, was it
Johnny
Johnny
Oduya.
Oduya?
I remember listening to it. Yeah, Johnny Oduya. I forgot he was a I am like
Forgot he was a person.
Yeah, I'm the biggest bandwagon Blackhawks fan. Like, don't talk to me till they're in the playoffs type of fan. But Johnny Oduya, like that was like a typical like, oh my god, that's right, he was a hockey player. Like, but that's just me because I'm not a big hockey guy.
Lenny
Right.
Kravitz.
That was a great comparison. That was a beautiful call.
Well, let me get back to his thighs. Cordero Patterson's thighs are beautiful. Jesus Christ! I mean, you see how many people it takes to bring him down?
Tree trunks, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a guy that doesn't even need thigh pads. His pads are his quads.
Yeah. Seriously.
But yeah, I mean, he's definitely a great locker room guy, a guy that you want to have around.
I wanted to say that. Don't you think he seems like a good morale guy?
Yeah, definitely.
Like in the clubhouse, keeps the mood light, like fucks around.
Well, yeah, and the reason I mentioned that,
towels.
yeah, the reason I mentioned him on Twitter too is he's been tweeting at Russell Wilson. He's been telling the front office. I think he tweeted to pay Allen Robinson. He's the one that actually I think tweeted that stat about the limited amount of drops from Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
So
like I should have scrolled down a little bit more on his Twitter. He's retweeting fans. All right, if CP Flash don't get an extension, then I'm not supporting the Bears no more. It's Cordero or nothing. He retweeted that. If Cordero isn't signed by the Bears, we riot. It's like,
and that's the kind of stuff that you would think that the front office would see from their players and almost be ashamed or think, all right, we got to turn something around here. We got to get the ship pointed in the right direction and on all cylinders.
I don't know. Maybe he knows something we don't. I mean, probably does, but I don't know. On the outside looking in, you'd think that's a guy you want on your sideline.
Right, for sure.
But either way, we move on. So let's talk a little bit about the Blackhawks here. One tweet we want to touch on here is a year ago. So March 11th, 2020. At the time, if you were at that game, nothing crazy, even in the immediate moments after. But in the days that preceded that, it was kind of a whirlwind. So the Hawks beat the Sharks 6-2 at the United Center. Turned out to be Corey Crawford's last home game at the United Center. Obviously, COVID shut everything down, and fans still haven't returned since. But Andy, I kind of wanted to ask you about this, covering the Cubs and just going to sporting events. How weird is it for these players, and not just hockey, baseball, all of these sports? How weird is it being in that big park and with no fans?
It's the weirdest thing because, like, I mean, you guys have all been to small college sporting events, I assume. Like there's at least like parents there, right? And you can hear the parents. Like, it was the weirdest thing when you go to a game, and you have to be tuned in so much because there's just nothing. Like there's just no reaction. There's no nothing, and yeah, like the piped in noise kind of fills in a way, but it's just so different. Like I was in Arizona for to cover spring training last week, and when Rafael Ortega hit the walk-off grand slam in a spring training game, dude, you would have thought it was game 7 of a World Series. The place went nuts, and it was like 2,000 people. The crowd was in a 7-inning game, a spring training game. It was announced 3,000, but a few people had left. It was probably like 2,500, somewhere in that range. But man, it was loud enough. Like, it was cool. It was so cool to see fans like finally back in the stands, because yeah, like you saw home runs, and like the piped in noise made noise, and the guys obviously were like all into it in the dugout. But it stunk. It really, really stunk. Just like the quiet, and like it was just dead. It was
Yeah.
like going to a party with like 3 people.
Who
It's
knew
like,
that we would be
yeah,
craving the atmosphere of a Schaumburg Boomers game? Because that's kind of
yeah,
what it sounds like. 2,500 fans, 7-inning game.
yeah. Like any minor league game, it was like it would be better than the no fans last year.
So
That's just how wild it is.
out in Arizona with spring training now, I'm assuming the capacity restrictions are continuously being loosened. Do you know where it stands now with fans at like Sloan Park?
They never like said after, like, I think the original announcement was like 25%. I could be wrong the exact percentage, but they never announced that it was getting loosened. But every day it was like 3,100, then the next day is like 3,200, and then the next day is like 3,300. It's like, well, like, you know there's obviously a limit. Like, how's it
Right.
going up? So obviously it was loosened a little bit, but I mean, for the most part, it was just like everyone was good at Sloan Park. Some of the other parks weren't the best, but like, I mean, everyone's wearing a mask, everyone's socially distant, but the fan noise, like, it's so cliche, but 3,500 people did sound like 15,000 people, or whatever Sloan Park holds exactly.
Well, think you're going from essentially complete silence. I mean, yeah,
Right.
you have the fake and piped in fan noise, but you're going from complete silence to at least what would that be, like 35,000 times that amount? Like,
Right. And you got to think, like, if you haven't been, like,
Resident
if you
math guy, Kyle.
guys right,
Kai, thanks for coming.
if you guys
Those
like
numbers
go
are
to a
right.
game, if you guys go to a game tomorrow, like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you guys go to a game tomorrow and there's a walk-off grand slam, like, you guys are going to go crazy, like, regardless of if it's and so, like, you're like, if this was everything's normal and it's a walk-off spring training, you're probably like, oh yeah, like, cool, like, whatever. But for a year, like, not being able to go to a game, and then seeing a game, and then seeing something cool like a walk-off grand slam, like, you're just naturally going to go nuts.
Right. Yeah. Regardless of how many people are there, like you said, going from 0 to 3,500 is still quite a jump. So it was probably
Yeah.
pretty electric. And
Yeah. It was,
this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask, or one of the topics I want to bring up, but I don't want to get too far off track with the Hawks because there's some things that I want to mention about that. But like, you think about a guy like Javi Baez, he seems like the kind of player that just feeds off the fans and crowd noise and gets really fired up
Yeah.
when something, when the fans are into the game.
right. And you see it like what was it, Saturday, where he makes those like really those 2 cool plays, the one between the legs,
Friday.
and then the one Friday, yeah, and then the bobbled one, and then he throws it. And you could see, like, just like how, like, he got that extra like jolt in him, right? Like, he got a little like bump in his step from the fans, and like, yeah, he did a couple cool plays last year, but it was like, all right, cool. Like, it's just
He's a
his
showman.
his teammates that see
Oh,
him do it
Mago.
every day. It's like, whatever. Like, it's not the same.
Yeah. And he's, I think he's going to benefit too from the, what do they call it? It's basically the in-game camera,
Yeah,
in-game
the
video.
in-game video. Yeah, the
Yeah.
in-game video to make adjustments.
He was definitely a player that spoke out about not having that last year and that being an issue for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the Hawks. I mean, just the UC during a Hawks game is one of the best atmospheres that you could be at for a sporting event in Chicago. A couple things that I was thinking about that kind of just reminded me of a little bit of normalcy or things that I almost forgot about. I want to hear Chelsea Dagger at the UC so bad. Like that and the screaming and clapping during the national anthem are two of some of the best sports traditions in Chicago.
That first Chelsea Dagger is going to hit different.
Oh my God.
Whatever the amount of fans that are in there, it's gonna feel like it's a standing room only crowd.
Honestly, I know the Cubs and the Sox are going to have fans to start this season. Is anything
You gotta think,
over the
right? No,
Hawks?
I haven't heard anything, but you gotta think like the Bulls and the Hawks are kind of like, hey, like, what about us type of thing? Like, you know,
or
like
is it different because they're
Outdoors.
Indoors.
indoors sort of thing?
could be, yeah, I don't know, but like you gotta be thinking that they'd at least be like, hey, like, you know, you guys gave them a cookie. What about us? Like,
Yeah, shit. Like, come on, you're telling me you can't put 20% capacity,
right?
Space it out, wear the masks.
4,000 people.
Right.
Like,
But yeah, now you got me thinking about Jim Cornelius singing the anthem. We'd be able to hear the fans screaming from 5 miles away.
yeah. And that might be the one that's like really takes off because the anthem is so
points.
specific. Yeah, when he points to the flag. If you
Was still there, like,
you look up in the 300s, I mean that's where I'm sitting.
yeah.
And you look over to your left when that happens, and it's just everybody's arm just like flies and just motions and mimics exactly what Jim Cornelius is doing.
So I have a quick funny story. I've only been to one Hawks game ever, and I won tickets, so it was all free. And I go, national anthem starts. I get up. I'm like, I want to say like I'm 14. I was like a freshman in high school. I stand up and I'm like standing there with my hand over my chest, and then everyone goes nuts, and I'm like, I'm just like looking like what's going, like, because I had no idea. Like I didn't know that was a thing. Like the fans going crazy at the anthem. If anyone listening doesn't know it, I'm like, what is going? I didn't know what to do. I was like in like shock. I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever." Yeah, exactly. I was like, "What do I do with my hands?"
Especially as a kid, you're always taught to be quiet and respectful during the anthem.
Yeah, and so then it's like the complete opposite, and you're like, "What?"
Is there any other, not sport, but any other venue or team that has some sort of tradition during the national anthem that even like rivals the standing and cheering for the national anthem at a Hawks game?
That's a good question. I can't think of one off the top of
No,
my
I
head.
don't think so. Kyle, that started against Detroit, I believe, right?
No, so that started in, I think it was it in the 80s? It was against it was in a playoff series against the Oilers. They were playing Gretzky and they were down 2-0 and they needed a jolt. So it just kind of happened naturally with Wayne Messmer was singing the anthem, and it kind of just carried over.
Man, that is so cool.
I think that's one of the coolest traditions. I know, not that it's like this isn't as cool, but the Orioles during the anthem at one point they just scream "oh," like everybody screams "oh," and the first time they did it, I'm like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, like the O's. Yeah, not a great look for Kai.
Tough loss for the Hawks last night, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't see much of it. It was I was watching a little college basketball.
Yeah, they could have used that one. I mean, the Panthers are just ahead of them in the standings. They lost 4-2. Yeah,
let's a little bit on the Hawks. So it was in that game yesterday. It was Keith Yandle's 1,000th game, but earlier in the week it was Patty Kane's 1,000 game. So he was the 354th player to reach 1,000 game mark, the 1,000 games played mark. So I was listening to a couple of different podcasts about this, about Patrick Kane reaching his 1,000th game.
I really hope you're going to say what I was just going to say, because it seems like you're going in that direction.
What were you going to say?
You tell me first. You started.
No, I don't
think you guys both say it at the same time.
I was going to say, I think it's really impressive, but there's some podcasts.
So were you listening to the John Scott podcast?
Yeah, he was saying that.
So was I, dropping the gloves.
Yeah, he's like, it's just not that big of an accomplishment anymore. But then I was listening to Spittin' Chicklets with Ryan Whitney and Paul Bissonnette, and they were like, it is just an unbelievable accomplishment to reach the 1,000 game mark. And it's like, and they were basically on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm on the end of the spectrum where it's, okay, how many players have played in the NHL? What percentage have played 1,000 games? Like,
right. To have that kind of longevity is impressive.
And
No
you think
doubt.
about it for him, didn't he have did he go through 2 strike seasons or did he only go through one?
He went through one, but then he also was it 2015? We were talked about it, I think, last week. He missed like a month and a half as well, when he broke his collarbone. So yeah, I mean, 148 game year, and then another one where it was like a 52 game year. So I mean,
Speaking of John Scott, we are going to have him on the show. I'm pretty excited for that one.
John
Maybe
Scott,
maybe we could talk to him about that.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't meet us in a dark alley or
I'm
anything.
a little scared to ask him any hard hitting questions because he would just beat the living shit out of me.
Could be your last podcast.
Yeah.
It did get me thinking, though. I mean, so now that you just mentioned Kane and Keith, Kane's obviously a winger. Keith is a defenseman. Do you think those 1,000 games were tougher on Keith than they were on Kane?
100%.
Right. So you can't really measure those 2,000 game comparisons equally.
I think Kane can, honest to God, play another 1,000 games. The style of game he plays, and this isn't, obviously it's not a knock on him. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, probably the greatest Hawk ever, but he plays a lighter style game. He's not, he's finesse.
Right. He's quick. He's good with the puck. He's kind of a deep
bumping uglies every day. Like, he's not on the boards or delivering hits on the forecheck. I mean, Keith plays hard minutes. He's out there blocking shots.
Right.
He's getting hit.
Right. Dunks is grinding it out.
Yeah. I think it's definitely more impressive, I guess, on Keith's standpoint to reach 1,000 games.
Right.
But what's the date? March 14th. March 14th, 2021. Mark my words. Patrick Kane is going to play a total of 2,000 games.
Write it down.
Yes.
Bold prediction.
And then if he gets hurt and like misses a long time, we could just cut this part out.
Just go back a year later and cut it all out.
Just cut the whole thing out.
Never happened.
What did that take? Like 10 years?
Yeah. So let's think. 82 games. If he were to play every single game, 82 games. So what times 10 was that? 820. So like 12-ish years, 13, I guess, years. But he easily. So he's 31 only right now.
Yeah.
You're telling me Patrick Kane couldn't play until he.
I mean, there's plenty of guys that play into their 40s.
Isn't Jerome McGinley still playing? And he's like, he's in his 40s?
63 or something.
Jerome McGinley retired, I think, 3 years ago.
Oh. I thought he
What
was
about like
collecting his
Shane
social
Doan?
security check
Is
too.
Doan still skating around in Phoenix?
You guys are naming players that retired in 2017. It's 2020.
Don't make me bust out Mike Modano or Joe.
He was a great player. Both were great players on backyard hockey.
Yeah.
Remember backyard baseball.
That's
Both were
right.
good.
Oh, backyard hockey. Hell yes.
Yep.
Talk about a throwback.
Sitting there on my computer, clicking my mouse as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Now that is a good game. Yeah, Mike McDonald, I think he was on the cover of Backyard Baseball. He's a fucking legend.
Stars, right? I think that's what he was on when he was on Backyard Baseball.
So Mike McDonald, the hockey player, was on the cover of Backyard Baseball. He really was a fucking legend.
He was on the cover of Backyard Baseball. That guy could swing it.
So one thing that I've been itching to talk about, and I think you guys were chatting about this before I got on earlier today, but how about the Illini?
Yes.
How about we talk a little bit Illini basketball?
That was a game.
That was a fucking game.
That was a strong finish, but the middle parts were lacking a little bit. They had a 17-point lead at one point, and they kind of let that diminish.
So, Max, did you watch the whole game?
Most of it. I caught pretty much the entire second half and all of overtime. Yes,
that's kind of where I was at too. Their point guard, Cabello.
Yeah.
I think he might be the most instrumental player on that team. He's good.
A wizard. He's
honestly
really fun to watch. The guy's almost got like a European game to him. He makes, he's got like these Manu Ginobili moves that he makes.
It's funny because so he's Puerto Rican. So, and I'm like kind of like generalizing in a sense, but like a lot of European and foreign game is all about like fundamentals, right? Like that's why when Luka comes over, like he can do it all. And that's why those Pau Gasol comes over and he can, do whatever. And like, you see all those guys that can like shoot the three and hit free throws. Whereas like 7-footers from the US are like, you stay down there and you rebound and you make your layups and dunks.
Right.
Like
Sharpening
those
the elbows
guys,
down low.
yeah, exactly. Like Curbelo probably was raised all about like you got to do everything right. Like you can't just do one thing type of thing.
Yeah. No, he's very disciplined, and he's he's got that finesse about him. He makes really crisp and smooth passes. The only thing about him is he does get himself into a little bit of trouble sometimes. He has a few turnovers a game, but
He reminds me of Ricky Rubio.
yeah, similar kind of play style. I think he's going to grow out of those turnovers, so you got to remember that he's only a freshman.
He's 19.
It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because there was a play. I think I can't remember if it was late in the second half or an OT. He comes around and he tries to drop a pass to Kofi, like behind the defender, like loop it around essentially. And he threw it to the Ohio State defender.
Mhm.
And it's like,
He gets
damn, that
caught
would have
in
been
there.
like a really sick play.
Right.
But
Well,
it was
there's times that things like that work, and it's like, holy shit, who am I watching?
Right.
You're watching
Right.
like an NBA veteran all-star make crazy passes like Steve Nash.
Right.
And then there's times where he dribbles himself under the hoop, he gets lost, he might travel or he'll throw the ball out of bounds, and you're
Right.
like, oh, okay. So
Well, like this was the longest Illini game I've seen in a while, probably like in a month or two.
Right, since the
And I remember
2000
watching,
season.
yeah, since 2005, D Brown. I was waiting for Luther Head to come out and shoot a couple threes. But when I first saw them like early on in the season, Curbelo wasn't playing much, and maybe it was just a game I watched that he didn't have a lot of minutes. But like I've seen his numbers like and his name like slowly rise, and as
Yeah.
they've risen, it's like the Illini have risen too. It's
True.
really interesting.
And I mean, you could tell they trust him because in that overtime, I don't think he came out of the game for all 5 minutes.
No, I don't think so.
So, I mean, and when Iowa was hurt with the broken nose, he really stepped up. They won some huge games on the road, and without him, that, I'd say pretty much all those wins might not have happened.
They
You know
beat
who I-
Michigan on the road.
Smoked Michigan. on
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
road.
Beat the pants off him.
You know what guy I really like, and this obviously isn't like a hot or going out on a limb, but I think Kofi is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean,
So
he's a man amongst boys in college.
That's
He
me
really
going
is.
out on a limb and saying Kofi is really good.
good.
One thing that bothers me about him is his free throw shooting. Obviously, you can't have it all, but when he gets to the line, it's
Made
honestly
him down the
like
stretch.
I want to say he's
Make him when
shooting
it
like
counts.
60%.
At one point, he was 3 of 9 today, but I bet you he finished. I bet you he finished 6 of 12,
Yeah.
which obviously isn't great. You should be.
Yeah, I mean, he missed 2
I
big
know.
ones in OT, but then he also made 2 big ones.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is their first Big Ten tournament title since that 04-05 season with D. Brown, Luther Head, and Deron Williams.
So we don't
It's-
have to. No, keep going.
I was just going to say, it seems like they're gelling at the right time. They've won 6 in a row this year against top 10 teams. They've won 14 of their last 15 games. And I mean, this is right where you want to be, winning 7 games in a row heading into the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed.
So you hear this kind of in sports across the board. Teams when they early in the season, are they peaking too early? Do you think a team like actually can peak too early? If you're
Yeah, I
playing well
mean-
early in the season,
Well, here, think about
you
like,
know.
say, Iowa. There was a time early in the season where Luka Garza was filling up the stat sheet, and he had 20 to 30 points a game, and they were a top 5 team in the country. Obviously, they finished 7, but there was a time where everyone thought that they were the team to beat in the Big Ten. Now they finished the season as they're a 2 seed in the tournament, but like I said, Illinois is
Are
gelling
they a
at the right
scary
time.
2 seed? Are they a scary 2 seed? Like you
Right,
look at their
exactly.
last few games, it's like, you're a 7-10 team that like feels hot. Like
Yeah.
who's to
Well,
say?
it's funny you mentioned that because I filled out my first bracket like as soon as it came out. And Oregon is the 7 seed that they would run into. I had Oregon winning, but
Against Iowa,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure I'll change it 6 times, and I might even wind up with Iowa in my Final Four.
I can't say I know a single player on Oregon, but I'll take Iowa and those and Luka Garza's eyebrows any day of the week.
But yeah, I guess another team like that is Michigan. There was a time in the season where everyone thought, shit, they're the best team in the Big Ten, maybe the best team in the country. And, they just had an injury to one of their best guards. Livers broke his foot. They don't know how long he's going to be out for.
I mean, he's
So-
obviously not. He's not playing in the tournament though.
Right. I mean, he's not going to play. He's not going to be there for the first couple games. I don't know. I mean, if they advance, we'll see if he makes some kind of a comeback.
So what Are they changing up the scheduling this year for
The
March
schedule's-
Madness?
Yeah, so
Schedule's
I
not
believe-
out, I don't think, right?
I believe what's happening is they're basically pushing everything back a day. So I think the play-in games are happening on still during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. But then the actual madness or the first round where all the games are happening is on Friday.
It does. What the hell? I'm looking at it now. So, and it bleeds into Monday.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And then interesting. I mean, I never.
I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I would much prefer to have Thursday through Sunday.
How awesome is it? We were talking about this last week, but just that Thursday, Friday of watching college basketball.
It's,
Don't even have to be like a huge fan.
no,
It's
that's the best. That's what makes March Madness. Like the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and all that. Like that's cool, but like that first round where it's like a 12 seed is like gonna win, or like that's what makes the whole tournament.
Right.
I want Harvard versus Wisconsin. Northern Iowa versus Texas A&M.
Yeah, like North Texas is
Winthrop
playing
versus
Purdue.
whoever. Yeah, I don't.
Winthrop. That's my upset team.
You got Winthrop. Huh? They're
Winthrop,
playing Villanova.
Yeah. Villanova, yeah. Villanova, their guard got hurt.
Cole
Yep.
Season
Gillespie.
this. Yeah, so and Winthrop's like 26-1, and I'm all in on what I don't even know what they are, but I'm all in on Winthrop. I don't know what their nickname is, but let's go Winthrop.
Yeah,
Follow
I
me
mean,
on the Winthrop.
Winthrop, the Winthrops.
Yeah. The
I
Eagles.
think Cal. I
The
think I have
Eagles?
Cal South Beach or Cal Santa Barbara in the Sweet 16 right now.
There was another team, Colgate. They were saying Colgate, Arkansas, like that's gonna be a high scoring game. Over.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it'd be remiss to not mention that it seems like U of I is going to meet up with Loyola in the second round. So
That's gonna
Loyola,
be fun.
yeah. So Loyola is playing Georgia Tech in the first round, which is no cakewalk. Georgia Tech just won the ACC tournament. So obviously they've got their hands full in that game, but Loyola was 24-4 this year. They finished the regular season 18th in the country. And they have, according to KenPom, the most efficient defense in college basketball. So when I was sitting there watching CBS, seeing the bracket get placed, I was pretty pissed to see that Illinois was going to get Loyola in the second round as an 8 seed. I think that's a pretty tough 8 seed.
That's gonna be a scrappy matchup.
Yeah.
So scrappy.
Illinois is a tough bracket.
They do. I mean,
Dude,
I think Illinois is going to handle Loyola for sure. I mean, I'm more scared of Sister Jean than any of the players on the court.
Well, that's understandable though.
So they have
Yeah,
to
they got
play
that kid Cameron Crutwig. He's
that mustache.
that big dude in the middle.
And if they
From my
get past,
hometown.
there we go. And if
Yeah.
they get past them, OK State,
Right.
OK
So that,
State, Cade Cunningham.
yep. And that's
The
who I
dude's a
actually
baller.
was going to talk about next. They just beat Baylor in the Big 12 tournament. They're another team that's kind of gelling and getting hot at the right time. And I was talking to a couple buddies and I was like, if there's one team that I don't want to be the 4 seed in Illinois' bracket, it's Oklahoma State. And of course, that's what we got.
Right.
Yeah, dude. They just have a tough draw, but so you filled out your bracket. Who do you got winning it?
Who do you think?
Georgetown.
You have the Illini. Who they?
Yeah,
What's your
I got-
final four?
I got the Illini. Extremely rough draft. First just instinctual Final Four was I had Arkansas beating Baylor to go to the Final Four, U of I beating Houston, Bama beating I think I had Colorado upsetting Michigan, and then
Colorado losing in the first round to Georgetown.
and then I got the Zags. So I had Gonzaga, Bama, Arkansas, and Illinois.
That just sounds weird. Like
Yeah.
just not. I mean, I'm sure that's probably a common combination, but like Arkansas and Bama in
Right.
the Final Four, like what?
Yeah, 2 SEC teams. I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
I
Sounds
don't
like
know.
a college football playoff.
Yeah,
No, maybe not Arkansas, but
Yeah, definitely not Arkansas or Illinois.
I actually would love to look into tickets. I mean, Indy isn't that far. So, I mean, if Illinois makes it, say, to the Sweet 16, it might be worth trying to get a ticket to that game, but I would imagine they're going to be
How are they
way
doing? How are
overpriced.
they doing this all in Indianapolis? I mean, they have Lucas Oil, the field house that's down there.
It's not just Indianapolis. It's like other parts of Indiana too, I think.
Yeah, I want to say they're using IU's gym too.
Are they using? I mean,
They
Purdue
got
is
I've
Butler.
seen Butler.
Yep.
I think
And then
Ball
they
State
have
isn't too far.
Whatever
from
the Pacers stadium is
yeah,
called.
Bank One Field House or whatever that's called.
Yep.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, I wanted to touch on the Illini, but now that we got that out of the way,
Let's talk Cubs.
yeah,
Let's talk Cubs.
let's get into the Cubs a little bit,
There we go.
or a lot of it.
Yep.
Let's do it.
So maybe we should start with spring training, Andy. What are some of your big takeaways? Obviously, Jock Peterson. We could probably start there.
Jock Peterson, left fielder for sure. Like you knew it once he was signed, but I think he is a slight improvement on Kyle Schwarber. I was kind of one of those where it's like, is it like
It's like a
it's the
carbon
same
copy.
dude? Yeah,
Right.
like you're literally, Command C, Control V or whatever, you're copy pasting. Like this is the same dude. And it's not. Like I think he's better defensively. He can play center too in a pinch. Like I think he's proving he can hit righties. He hasn't gotten the opportunity to hit lefties, which he's been saying like that's his chip on the shoulder he wants to prove, right? Like David Ross, Jed Hoyer, all these guys have been saying like players sometimes get categorized as like a certain type of player. And like we do it too as fans, right? Like we see Jock Peterson, Kyle Schwarber and say like, oh, they could only play against righties, they can't hit lefties. And Jock Peterson with the Dodgers, like the Dodgers are so stacked that it was like, yeah, dude, you're only playing against righties because we've got 5 other guys that can play against lefties, no problem. And Jock Peterson's like, dude, I can play against lefties.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love that confidence. That's half the battle up there at the plate.
He took less money to sign with the Cubs or to prove that he can play against lefties with less money and less years.
Kyle and I were making the Schwarber Jock comparison last week on the show. It's eerily similar. It's strange how similar their stats are.
Yeah.
So
And
like
But I completely agree with you on the defensive front. I think Peterson's definitely an upgrade there. And he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't really had a crack at being a full-time outfielder with the Dodgers. So maybe giving him the keys to the outfield and saying, here's the one, this is your position.
Right. And it's so cliche, right? Like when you don't know what you're going to be, like, am I going to play today? Am I play left? Am I play center? Like he even played first. He was, it wasn't that great defensively at first base, but it's like, what are you like? You don't know what you're going to play or if you're going to play. Like now he knows, all right, every day or almost every day, I'm going to be playing left field for the Chicago Cubs. Like that's got to be reassuring and like can let him focus on, all right, like I got to do this at the plate or I got to do this defensively. Like he doesn't have to worry about anything else.
do you think playing left field at Wrigley, there's a big adjustment to playing there at that park compared to playing left field at Dodger Stadium? I mean, you hear a lot of time, like obviously the bricks and the ivy, it doesn't have the huge second deck. So like just reading the ball off the bat, do you think that's a big adjustment he has to make?
If you're on the away team, you might get a beer dumped on your head.
That too. Yeah. There's the bleacher bumps he's got to deal with. Yeah. But I think like the big thing for him, I don't know if I know Kyle's been to Sloan Park, but like the dimensions at Sloan Park are eerily like similar to what you'll see at Wrigley. And that's on purpose, right? Like you don't want to like play this huge, like, I don't know, like Oakland Coliseum type left field in spring training and then go to Wrigley Field for the whole season. So that's a little bit of a preparation as he makes the adjustment to playing left field at Wrigley.
I love it. I love his game. I mean, obviously it's a small sample size in the spring, but what's he got? 5 home runs?
I was going to say, if you get a hold of him or you talk to him, maybe tell him to push some of those home runs back to the regular season. Don't burn all your bullets now.
What's interesting though is like the Cubs that just in general haven't faced many lefty starters in spring training. I think they faced, I want to say like 2 at most. And I think he's only played against 1. I'll have to double check that, but it's like 2 at bats against lefties. Like he could go 2 for 2 and it doesn't mean he's fixed his swing against lefties. And you think he went 0 for 2 against lefties. That doesn't mean like he can't hit lefties. It's just too small of a sample size. And it's a little bit of bad luck in terms of trying to prove what you're out to prove.
Right.
So JD was saying that the other day on the broadcast that in the NL Central specifically, there's like Steven Brault on the Pirates, Brent Sutter, or who's the Sutter in Milwaukee?
Brent Suter.
Brent
Yeah.
Suter. There's the Korean pitcher, Kim, I believe.
Yeah, from the Cardinals.
But besides that,
We might want to get a pinch hitter in there if he's facing Hader, but that's a pretty unique situation.
I mean, shit. If any lefty besides Rizzo,
You might want to get a pinch hitter in there if most of the righties on the team are facing Hader.
Except for Jason Hayward, he had that home
Yeah,
run last year.
Right. That's true.
Hey, can you guys believe Alec Mills threw a no hitter?
That's bonkers.
I texted him at least 3 times this offseason. I texted Kyle at least 2 times this offseason. Right, completely out of the blue. Like at 4:00 on the Saturday, I'm like, dude, can you believe Alec Mills threw a no hitter?
Let me just remind you.
It's just
It was like 3
mind-boggling.
separate times.
One of my favorite stats from that is he only had 5 swing and misses that game.
Just
Yeah.
weak contact.
Yeah, fouling pitches off. He only had 5 strikeouts too. So I mean, 5 strikeouts, 5 swing and misses. Like,
Well,
Talk
and
about
Kyle,
talent.
and Kyle can attest to this. We were covering that game, and I think in the 7th inning, we both texted each other, 2 outs in the 7th. We're like, dude, he's got zeros, and just did not believe it. We're like, what?
right.
And I was covering that game, reporting, and it was getaway day, it was close to the playoffs. Wasn't even really thinking the minutia of that game, right? They were winning 16-0 or whatever it was. It was it was over.
Yeah.
Bears
all
were
right,
on.
yeah, and the Bears were on.
I think
Yeah,
that's
so
the
it
thing
was
is I wasn't even watching it because the Bears were on.
It's the first
because
game.
I remember all the tweets where everyone's like, "Holy crap! You got to get on. You got to turn off the Bears because Alec Mills is doing something crazy right now." And
Right.
it was
It
just
reminded me of
unbelievable.
Arrieta's no hitter too. I think one of Arrieta's no hitters was a 16-0 game or something like that.
The
against
Reds run. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy to think the Cubs, and it could be longer than 4, but I'm thinking Zambrano, Arrieta twice, and now Alec Mills. Their last 4 no hitters have all been on the road. And
Yeah.
two
That
of
is
them,
interesting. Yeah.
2 of them in Milwaukee, one of them in Milwaukee because of a relocated game, and then one in Milwaukee with zero attendance.
Fans.
I think our ace Kyle Hendricks is gonna change the narrative on that. We're gonna get a cold day at Wrigley with the wind blowing out, and he's gonna have that sinker working.
So you say Kyle Hendricks is our ace?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Why does Jake Arrieta have better odds to win the Cy Young?
I don't know. I was hoping Andy would be able to answer that question.
The only thing I can think of was that he's done it before, and it's that boost of because I the last time I checked, I think Arrieta was plus 6,000,
Yeah.
Yep.
roughly in that neighborhood, and
Hendricks is plus
Hendricks
6,600.
6,600, which when the odds are that high, 600 isn't it's not a huge difference, I guess. But yeah, I guess it would goes in the sense that he's done it before. And Kyle Hendricks, his whole career, he's been sleeved on. In 2016, it was yeah, John Lester and Jake Arrieta. And it's dude, Kyle Hendricks.
Kyle Hendricks was right there in the Cy Young voting.
Yeah, he was just as dominant as those guys.
Right. Well, and yeah, so another thing that I thought about too, plus 6,600 is obviously a long shot, but it seems like even Hendricks at his best in his best season, he doesn't rack up strikeouts like a guy like Trevor Bauer does or Walker
Right.
Buehler.
I mean, he obviously only throws 89.
Right, but there's
Right.
there's definitely an element or an art to his pitching that can't be ignored. But it seems like the MLB now is about home runs and strikeouts. It's a power game, and when you get the Cy Young voting, even if Hendricks had his best year, I think he would have a hard time beating a guy that has close to 300 strikeouts.
And the only way, the way to combat that is to have a low ERA. And I think the one thing the Cubs have done to really, I guess, elevate that is they've improved their defense tremendously. We spoke about Jock Peterson, but Ian Happ's improved defensively in center field, right field defensively. You have probably the second best defensive right fielder in the at least in the National League, behind Mookie Betts. Chris Bryant at third base. He'll have to bounce back just given that he's going to play more and not be not only play 30 games like he did last season. Shortstop, Gold Glover. Nico Horner was a Gold Glove finalist. He's going to make some defensive jumps. And then Anthony Rizzo, who's won a Platinum Glove at first base. Like, it's a solid defensive lineup. And for a guy like Kyle Hendricks, like, who's very much like, I'm going to put the ball in play and I'm going to have my defense do the work, like, that helps a lot. And that just helps the rest of the guys too, because like Zach Davies, very similar guy. Trevor Williams, very similar guy.
Right.
Jake Arrieta is going to be a very similar guy this year. Like, I think
I wrote
Cubs
down
fans
that they're basically going to be a pitch to contact rotation.
right. Like they're gonna, if they're like bottom 10, bottom 5 in strikeouts by their rotation, like that won't be a shocker to me. But that's not going to be a bad thing because that's not what they're trying to do.
Right.
And you
I
see
was
that,
reading an art. Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I'm saying you still see that early in spring training now with their
Yeah.
starting pitchers. Their starting pitchers, I mean, who's given up the most runs and even on start, maybe Arrieta with 2. I bet you so far
Right.
this spring, their starting pitchers have only allowed probably 4 runs, and obviously they're going 2 or 3 innings. But
I think it's technically Alzolay, that one start that he got roughed up, his first start of the spring.
yeah, but that was no. So his first start of the spring was good. It was when he came in relief of
That's right. Yeah.
Arrieta. He
Mhm.
came in relief and then just got absolutely.
And I was reading an article too where Ian Happ was quoted. I don't know what the exact quote was, but he was saying that the guys in the field are welcoming contact. They're saying, you
Yeah.
don't have to strike everyone out. He's basically telling the staff, let these guys hit the ball and let us make the plays for you.
How
So
much?
shout out.
How much do you
Go
like
ahead.
read into the pitch lab? Do you think that's like those guys getting in there is a thing?
I'm a huge believer in it just because like you saw the results in someone like Adbert Alzolay, and you saw the Cubs bullpen in the second half in the month of September. Essentially, you saw those numbers just like spike up. Like
Mhm.
they had one of the top. I can't remember exactly if they were the number 1 defense or number 1 bullpen, excuse me, in baseball.
I think they were in
but they were
September.
yeah, I think they were, but they were like, if not, they were right up there. And like that's just what you see like from the pitch lab and these guys getting into work and that's like one thing that I found interesting when you look at guys in spring training, right? Like your natural instinct when you see someone that like is throwing, like someone like Craig Kimbrell who's throwing 95. You see the stats right where he gives up like 5 runs or whatever in a 1 inning, and it's like, well, like what the heck? Like, is he back to the old Craig Kimbrell? And David Ross brought up a good point where he's like, he's throwing 95, where he's usually sitting 96, 97, and like 95 to us is like you're like whatever, like that's 1 mile.
It's crazy to say. No, it makes a huge
It's
difference.
huge difference. And like
Right.
the point he brought up, right? Like if it's 95, and you're trying to go up in the zone, 95 dips down into the middle of the zone, and big league hitter is going to hit 95 in the middle of the zone, no problem.
Mhm.
But if it's 96, 97, it's a little higher, and instead of hitting the barrel of the bat in the middle of the zone, it's the top of the barrel and it's a pop-up. And so like that 1 mile, 2 mile an hour difference, like that makes a huge difference. And I think that's what the big thing that Craig Kimbrell's working on. And so you might see his numbers in spring training, like he might give up a few runs or a few hits, and that's just because like these guys don't care about they could throw 3 perfect innings, but if their slider that they're working on is not good, like it's not a great start for them. And that like Trevor Williams was a great point. He made a great point after his first start against the Dodgers. He's like, yeah, I was trying out all my slider grips, and so like I wasn't really concerned with like if someone got a hit. Like we had like he struck out Mookie Betts, and it was like, oh, like was it cool striking out Mookie Betts? He's like, I struck him out. Like what?
That's
like,
not what he's paying
like,
attention to, right?
Right. He's focusing on his slider, and that's just like that's what spring training is.
Struck him out twice.
Yeah, that's right, twice.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and that's what the pros are doing. They're analyzing their stuff. They're not analyzing the results in spring training.
Right.
So, and Andy, going to your point there with Kimbrell, he had in September, what do you have, a 0 ERA or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Really low. I'm on Baseball Savant right now looking at his average fastball, and he's sitting like 97.
Yeah.
So
You got to think that after
and he's
this early in spring training, when they get close to the regular season, he's going to ramp up and be throwing
And
a little harder.
Think about it, like last season with everything that happened, like what he's going through now, he was going through it in games that mattered. Like right now, he's going through it
July
in
and
spring
August.
training.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And now he's going through it in March, where it's like, well, you don't care if he has a 500 ERA in March, because what matters is the regular season. And if he figures that out now and he starts throwing like the Craig Kimbrell everyone knows in April, May, June, July, like that's a really good sign for the Cubs back into the bullpen.
For sure.
I mean,
Back to Kyle Hendricks real quick, because I feel like my man does not get the recognition that he deserves. But I read a Fangraphs article on him recently, and it really got into some nerdy stats about batted ball rates and pitch influence and things like that. So a couple of stats that I pulled from the article that I thought were really interesting. From 2017 to 2020, his changeup had a negative 5.2 mile per hour influence on a minimum of 500 batted balls. So that resulted in an out, hit, or an error. So basically,
Sure.
balls in play, that pitch, his changeup, had a negative 5.2 mile per hour influence on, the hard hit rate or the contact. The next closest was Jacob deGrom's slider, and it was negative 3.6. So that just shows you how nasty Kyle Hendricks' changeup has really been.
that was a good like talk to me like I'm 5 moment. I was like, hold on, keep
It was kind of confusing.
Cameron Maben had a good line when he signed, or when he was acquired by the Cubs last season. They asked him, like, "Oh, what do you know about the guys?" And he remembers telling his teammates, like, when you face Kyle Hendricks, you're facing baby Maddox. Like,
Right.
it's just it's obviously not Greg Maddux, but it's like the profile is very similar.
Right. And, if you tell him that, he's going to be like, no, I'm not even close to his league. But if you really look at the analysis of some of his pitches and what he's been able to do with the low speed that he delivers with, it's been nothing short of incredible. Another thing was his changeup delivers the second lowest called strike rate in the majors since 2017. So that means he's not putting his changeup in the zone, but he's getting guys to chase.
Right. And that makes a huge difference. That's why the defense is going to be so huge, right? Like, if you're putting in, like, let's just throw out a number. Like, if you're putting in 100 balls in play and you have like an average defense, let's say an average defense makes, 90 of those. So that's 90 outs you're getting, right? But that's 10 hits where they could either, it could be anything else, right? Single, double, triple, inside the park, home run, like it could be whatever. But if you improve the defense to let's say 93 to 95, while that doesn't seem like much, like in the long run, like that's a huge difference, right? Because let's just say in one of those extra outs, like that's a bases loaded situation and it's a double play that ends the inning. Like, it's just like the numbers for a better defense like makes sense with Kyle Hendricks.
Yep. And he had that one year where, his ERA ballooned a little bit, but that's all locating. So
right.
Last stat I'll throw out there is he's in the 98th percentile with how often his fastball and sinker paint the black, which is key for him. So, I mean, if he's
good?
Living in the shadows right there, painting the black, he's virtually going to be untouchable.
Call him Sherwin-Williams because the guy loves to paint.
We might have to start calling him that.
Trademark it.
The professor's pretty good, though. I don't know.
It is a really good name.
Andy, for NL Cy Young odds, like you were saying earlier, he's plus 6,600. If you had to put money on him, or let's say, would you put money on Hendricks? And then who do you think is going to win the Cy Young?
So, yeah, you got to put money on Hendricks just because, like, I'm not a big believer that the NL Central is going to be like a be all end all. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like the NL Central is getting kind of hyped up. Like the Cardinals obviously getting Nolan Arenado is huge, and like he's going to be a good player for them. But like, I'm not a big believer that like any of these teams come close to the Dodgers or Padres level. And so I think like Kyle Hendricks can put up good numbers to where he's in that conversation. And that's why it's at least worth it, right? Like if he has his career year, like there's no reason to think he can't win a Cy Young.
So he's had a Cy Young an ERA as low as 2.13. And that was in 2016.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I'll tell you this. I think Hendricks is a better bet than John Gray and Josh Hader, and both of those guys have higher odds than him.
And relievers are so tough nowadays to like even Devin Williams probably had like the best reliever year you could have, and I don't think he even garnered
a Young vote.
Yeah, exactly. And that was about as dominant of a relief season as you've seen in a while.
He's no Ryan Tepera.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was an MVP vote, right?
That was an MVP vote. Yeah, it wasn't a Cy Young. But I mean, I guess that's a little tougher to win for sure.
Who gets those votes? Like who?
Baseball Writers Association of America. Yeah.
Okay, so how many guys do you know roughly how many guys are in that
So when
in
can
that
you
pool.
get your vote, and when can we pay you to just vote for Cubs players every year?
Yeah, that's a better question.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Is that like an
Um,
application process? Do you have to apply to be apply to be a part of that?
Yeah, so the hope is next year. Yeah, I'll be a part of the BBWAA, but like it's tough to like you don't know what's gonna happen this year, obviously with like credentialing and just
Mhm.
like so many logistical things that are out of my control. But anyway, like yeah, so the way it works is for every award, so like MVP, NL Cy Young, AL Cy Young, every city that has a team in that league gets 2 votes. So like NL Cy Young, there'll be 2 writers from the Chicago chapter that will get votes, but like the Tampa Bay Baseball Writers Association chapter won't get any votes for that because they don't have an NL team. So like that's how it works. So it's 2 for each award, and if you get like so like let's say we're all 4 of us are in the BBWAA, like Kyle, like let's say you get the MVP vote, you can't get the Cy Young vote, but if I have the Cy Young vote and Max has the Rookie of the Year vote, like they don't crisscross. It gets tricky with like cities like Milwaukee and smaller markets because I don't think Milwaukee has enough for each. I don't think they have enough members for each vote. So then like they'll go to like LA and get a writer who hasn't voted on anything, and they'll grab him and he'll vote for the extra Milwaukee spot or something like that.
Gotcha. So Ryan Tepera's mom or dad must be in the association, basically.
No, so it was yeah, that's actually a funny story. So Rick Hummel, who is a Hall of Fame writer in St. Louis, the way it works is it's like a drop down menu, right? And so you pick, first place you pick whoever, second place you pick whoever. So for 10th place, he meant to pick Trey Turner, and right up, right, I guess that would be above Trey Turner was Ryan Tepera, and so he clicked on Ryan Tepera on accident instead of Trey Turner, and so
Oh
but
man,
now
that is
forever,
actually a great story.
yeah, but so now forever, Ryan Tepera will have been an MVP candidate, I guess. Or
He can
vote
slap
getter.
that on his resume.
So for your reference,
Exactly.
Ryan Tepera is a guy that's like fighting for a bullpen spot this year.
Yeah, I don't know who the hell that guy is.
Exactly.
I know we're probably running out of time here, but there's a couple more things I want to get
Yeah,
to.
for
So,
sure.
First of all, can we get a C stitched on Anthony Rizzo's jersey? Like, can we get him a captain C or what?
I think right now the bigger thing is a contract extension. So like the C for
Oh.
contract extension. I think that's a bigger thing that they're working on right now. But
That's probably the last detail that they're working out.
That's how you know Andy
He
works
wants a
for
big
the-
C, and they don't know if they could do that yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all right, like no trade clause or C on the jersey. No, I'm just kidding. But like that's the big thing right now for Riz is nailing him down for ideally for the rest of his career, right?
How old
Yeah.
is he? 32 now?
He's 32 or 31. Let me look it
You
up.
got to think.
I think he's definitely a guy that you just want to see be a Cub for the remainder of his career, regardless of what his numbers look like at the end of the contract.
He's been the guy who was there like in the bottom of the bottom parts of the rebuild to the highest of the highs, and he's been through it all. Like, yeah,
I think he was teammates when he first became a Cub. He had teammates Ryan Dempster and Alfonso Soriano. Like,
right.
Come on, Dempster's been retired for like 5 years now. I think both of them have been retired for like 5 years now.
Right.
So he's been through some shit.
He's been through a lot of losses and a lot of wins.
We also haven't talked about Nico Horner's hair yet.
That was so 2 things about Nico Horner. I guess 3 things. He's been killing it at the plate, but to me that was
Nico Herner.
Herner.
So
How long were you thinking of that one?
All week, actually.
You know, it's funny. I'm looking at the notes. I honestly just thought you spelled Horner wrong. I'm like, what's Herner?
He's got a little salad going on. Little lettuce in the back there.
Yeah, so the 3 biggest things about Nico Horner, he's like killing at the plate, but that's like number 3 on like the list of accomplishments he's done going into spring training. Number 1 and number 2 is he got jacked. Like dude got jacked in the offseason. Yeah, he did his push-ups, he ate his Wheaties, whatever cliche you want to do. Like best shape in his life. Like he really is probably in the best shape of his life. And he's got the best hair. I don't know. I guess I don't know what his hair was like his whole life, but at least best hair since he's been with the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looks good on all fronts.
You know what I like about him too is he's such a different type of hitter than what the Cubs have. He's a contact guy, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm really hoping that what happens is he kind of just he becomes a lock, and he's penciled in at second base every day just to see what he can do. Just give him the confidence and give him the position and see how he handles it. And
He's such a
develop him
genuine dude.
right.
Is he?
He's such a genuine dude. So the Cubs signed Eric Sogard as like competition depth, whatever you want to like classify it at second base.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Right. And they were at like one of the reporters asked him like, like basically like asking him like, you feel like your job's threatened. It's like, no, a good competition, right? Like whatever can try to make the team better. Plus he was a former Oakland A, and it's like, cause he's from Northern California, so Oakland A fan. Like,
Yeah.
that was like the little kid
Loves
in him
that.
being like, Oakland A guy, like a guy I watch play, and like, that's so like Kyle, if you were playing for the Cubs, or if you were playing for like, I don't know, like the Royals or someone, and they signed like Ryan Theriot, like you'd be like, dude, former Cub.
Pepper needs.
So
the
yeah, and
Bills.
that was kind of another thing that I was thinking. Do you think that that's going to be kind of the way that David Ross constructs his lineups? Do you think we're going to see more consistency from him than we did with Joe Madden when you didn't know what was going to come out of his mouth or be written down on the card every day?
Yeah, and it's so funny because like last year, in the 60-game season, like where everything's like rush, David Ross was like, I was too patient. Like he mentioned, like, he kept the lineup consistent like for a good while. It was like, KB was batting first, Rizzo was second, it was Javi and then Wilson at third, or batting third, and like you knew that rotation. And when those guys were like struggling, he didn't break, right? He left them in there. And over like 162, that makes sense, right? Because like Javi Baez isn't going to hit 200. Chris Bryant isn't going to hit 200. Like over 162, that's going to happen. But over 60 games, like where you're trying to win, and Ian Happ's hitting, he was hitting in the 300s in the first month of the season. Like you got to get him up higher in the lineup, and he did that. But like he admitted, he's like, I got to be quicker. Like I can't have less patience. And it's funny though, because that was in a 60-game season, which was his first season, and now he's going into a 162 season, and
Where you can kind of have a little more patience. Yeah.
Right. So it's like kind of like that catch-22, right? Like how will he like manage that balance, and how will he manage that patience and whatever. And it's interesting because like he is very much like he's very humble, like not like I don't know everything, so I'm going to go to my coaches who can help me. Like I can figure this out, I can figure problem X and do it and figure it out. And that's what's really been impressive to me. Like he's just like, it's so weird, right? Because like obviously he's older than me, but it's like you're seeing him mature as a manager, like right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even think of just how weird that had to be for his first year.
Right.
Yeah, I'm assuming from the spot he was in when he was still playing, he was essentially like a bench coach. Like
right.
Did he was like the players manager, what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, if he was going into a normal 162, it's like, okay, well, there's still going to be a maturing period and everything, but you throw him into a 60-game season with COVID and
no fans.
COVID, no fans. And then, like with Jason, like all the protests and everything, like just everything that was going on.
Yeah.
I mean,
he handled it pretty well. He won the Central.
And obviously what Miami went through with their outbreak and making the playoffs, and obviously they knocked out the Cubs, but like deservedly so, Don Mattingly was manager of the year. But had this been, had it not been for the Marlins, like I think it's hard to not make the case for David Ross given everything he went through. And like if you look at it, like if I would have told you guys last year, you would have had Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Wilson Contreras all have like their career worst years, and the Cubs would still win the Central. You guys probably would have laughed at me like
by 5 games.
Right.
Exactly. It just shows how like the role he played in managing the lineup, managing the bullpen situation, which was really like in September was wild, and then turning to Jeremy Jeffress and then managing his rotation. Like he just did a great job last year.
What do you think what do you perceive the relationships like between a guy like Rizzo or KB with Ross compared to a relationship that they would have with, I'll say, a more like an older manager, somebody that obviously that they didn't play with, like I guess a Joe Madden type guy?
Right. So I guess it's tough because like you wouldn't know how they react with someone like that they haven't had before. But
Mhm.
Anthony Rizzo mentioned something interesting in his interview, like he mentioned like it's fun when you take off that friend hat, right, and you put on that ball player hat, and you see what I mentioned just a couple minutes ago. Like it's fun seeing him mature as he's making baseball decisions. And Rizzo said like he's like, I'm excited to see him actually be a manager this year, because last year he wasn't really a manager. Like he had to deal with like COVID protocols, he had to deal with everything else. Like he didn't get a chance to be like a baseball manager. He was just kind of like I don't know, he just wasn't able to
Facilitator.
do it. Right, exactly. Like he had to be on top of the guys to like, hey, like make sure you're not going out, make sure
Right.
you're going to the hotel. Like it's
Make
just
sure
those
you're
little
not
things.
screwing around like the Cardinals.
Right, exactly. Like you're not going to a casino or a golf course when you're supposed to,
I think
when you're playing in a pandemic.
Obviously, I don't know because I don't, I've never met him or don't have the experience of the players, but it seems like he's definitely got that balance where he can be your friend, but he also commands the respect from the players to like, all right, we gotta take our shit seriously and we gotta still get our shit done, but we're gonna have fun while we're doing it.
Right. And like the most impressive thing was when he had to go up to Javi Baez and say, hey, dude, like I know you're a former MVP candidate and you're one of the best players and best and exciting players. Like, but I got to move you down in the lineup because you're not cutting your weight at the four hole. And Javi Baez was like, I agree. Like, you got whatever you got to do. Like, you got to do it. And that's like, there's no way that could have been easy. Like, I can't imagine like if you guys had to go up to each other and be like, hey, dude, like, I know you're doing a great job on this podcast, but
Just need you to talk a little less.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, I've seen Max swing a bat, so I'm fairly confident I can beat him in that category.
There's nothing we need to talk about there. That passes the eye test.
That
I would slide right down the order. But yeah, I guess before we wrap, we always have we have this new segment that we added. It's called Down on the Farm.
called fuck
All right.
Nico.
So Down on the Farm is basically what this is we try to dig into a Cubs or Sox prospect every week, and give the fans or give the listeners a little bit of detail about a Cubs or Sox prospect that they might not know. So the guy that I picked this week was Braylon Marquez, and I think you're probably definitely more familiar with what he's been doing recently and even in his Cubs tenure since they picked him up. But yeah, I mean, what are kind of your thoughts on Brailyn Marquez, and when do you think he's going to be up in the bigs helping the Cubs out?
I think it's possible you could see him towards the end of this year. Like obviously, like the big unknown is like what's a minor league season going to look like? What is it going to be? Right? Like is it going to be like a normal minor league season where you got all your levels and everything? Like they were kind of pressed into having him play that final game against the White Sox last season, just so he could face some real competition. Like David Ross mentioned it today, Sunday, in his press conference. Like there's like a cool thing about the All-State, right, where it's like you can control the development a lot because you can control how many at-bats you have, you can control how many pitches you throw, like et cetera, et cetera. But the bad thing is like you're not facing competition, like you're just facing your teammates essentially. And that's kind of what happened with Brailyn Marquez. It's like, yeah, he's throwing 99, 100, whatever, but it's like he's doing it against like the same, 10 guys or whatever. Like there's no scale to see like, all right, like eventually these guys are going to be able to catch up because they know what's coming and they're seeing it every single day. Like it's just that balance, right? And it'll be interesting to see what his development looks like because I think he needs a little bit more time in the minor leagues to fine tune it. Like you saw like velocity wise it plays, right? Like there's no
Right.
question about that, but it's like if you're throwing 100 and you don't know if it's going to go to the guy's face or in the ground, like that's just not going to
Useless,
not going to
right.
play. You're right.
So
Do you think
yeah,
he's
I
been
mean,
the most intriguing prospect?
well, I mean, he's on the pipeline, or I think the MLB website, I saw that he's their number one prospect.
Yeah,
Is he the number
Go
one
ahead.
prospect? I thought Brennan Davis was.
I think it depends where you're looking at.
So it's
Him
like
and Brendan Davis have been
They're
One or
probably
two.
interchangeable, right? But I
Right, and
also read something that said that Marquez might even be competing for a rotation spot.
not this year, though.
not this year, yeah, but I think he is. I think he originally came up as a starter, and obviously with COVID and having to have the shortened season and not pitching, like there's no sense in having him throw 5 innings
Yeah.
to get rocked in against Major League hitting. So having him have that one inning was good for him. And there's not to say, like, let's say this season he starts in, I don't know, like Tennessee,
Yeah.
because I think he's played above high A, right? And so if he goes to Tennessee and can at least stretch to be pitching 3 or 4 innings at a time, like, that's not to say he can't be a starter down the road. But I think you saw it, like, with someone like Chris Sale, right? And I'm not saying Brailyn Marquez is Chris Sale, but like you saw when he first came up, he was a reliever, right? And then he evolved into that starter. Like, that's a similar path that you could see happening.
Right.
Kind of like what the Sox are doing with Crochet.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, that's a really, really good comp. Like, dude who throws 100 miles an hour and can strike people out, but like
From the left side.
right from the left side,
is
he's got a
obviously a
wonky
plus.
delivery too.
Huge advantage. Yeah. The craziest thing that I was reading about Marquez is they signed him for $600,000 in 2015, and he had a high 80s fastball back then. Then in spring of 2017, he was up to like 89, 92. 18, he bumped that up to 93, 96, and then by 2019, he's comfortably in the upper 90s, and now I think he's topped out at like 102.
Yeah, but think in 2015, what is he? 15?
Yeah,
years
he was.
old, I
He was
think?
15 or 16
Think of
years
how
old.
much like a guy like that, his body's just developing.
Right.
That's a tough thing with the international prospects is they're all signed at 16, and it's like oh, like, this dude's gonna be a stud. Well, it's like you don't even see high school in his draft.
Yeah, maybe like in a decade.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like,
And he's
Like, you
one
see
that's
that-
kind of just like panning out, I guess.
right, and you see that, like, Wilson Contreras was signed by the Cubs in like 08 or something. Like,
Yeah, 09.
yeah, it's like think about that. Like, it took him 7 years to get there.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm sure they were looking at Marquez and his frame. He's 6'4", 185. He's lanky lefty.
He's
Right.
not 185 anymore, is he?
No, there's no way.
I was gonna
Right.
say he's probably closer to 285 than
Right. Yeah. That when they signed him, that's what he was.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
so yeah, you figure you had some weight, you could probably get him ideally in the mid 90s, and now you're getting him in the high 90s. Like, that's a win for sure, even if he only turns out to be a bullpen arm.
Yep.
I'll take that 10 times a week.
100%.
Let's wrap it up with quick predictions here.
Let's do it.
All right, Cubs win total 79.5. You got to hammer that over, right?
Hammering that over every day of the week, like, until
Twice on
April
Sunday.
1st. Yeah, exactly. Like, just keep hammering away until you're running out of money, because I think that's gonna hit.
That's,
Like, unless like, I don't know, something crazy has to happen, right? Like, everyone gets hurt, and like,
I mean, yeah, it seems like the
Yeah,
biggest
it's-
question mark is their rotation.
right, the rotation is the biggest question mark. But like they're gonna beat up on Pittsburgh, they're gonna beat up on Cincinnati. Like, I'm not sold.
enough. The Reds have better odds to win the Central.
I don't get that either. Like, Luis
not
Castillo is
buying
a
that.
stud, but like, that's one guy, and they traded away Raciel Iglesias. Like, I don't know. There's just too many wins in the Central to be had to like think like it's just gonna be 79.
Unless Sonny Gray returns to 2017 form.
Right. Which,
last year too.
Right.
yeah, but that's only 2 starters for the Reds.
I'll give the Cubs 84 wins this year.
I'm gonna say how many wins you giving them.
I'm gonna go 85. Yeah, 85.
Price is
89.
righted your ass.
Yeah,
Was that-
he did.
You one up me.
That was Price is Right, dude.
So you think 85 will be enough to get the division, or do you think that'll put them in a wild card?
I think that'll put him in the wild card conversation. Like, I think it's gonna be like Dodgers, like 102 or something like that. Like, I think the Dodgers opened up. I think they're like 103 and a half. I'm going the under. Like, even though like they're really, really good, I don't think they're not 104 wins. Like,
Yeah, that's an
So many
intimidating
wins.
number.
especially when you're playing the Padres, 19 times out of the year.
I'll say even if you get, so yeah, they play 19 times. So what? They go 11-8, or like that's.
You
I mean, yeah, that's obviously 11 wins, but that's a tough. That's a tough schedule. The
Right.
Rocks suck though. They might have 19
The
wins.
Diamondbacks aren't
Total.
much better.
Are the
Giants
Diamondbacks that good?
I don't think they're gonna be that great. Yeah, like David Peralta.
Didn't even know. I thought he was retired.
No, he's still playing. Eduardo Escobar. Ketel Marte is a good player. They've got some nice pieces, but they're just so far behind the rest of the division. It's like they're in kind of no man's land. Like
Yeah, I can't picture the Dodgers getting to
the
104.
the Giants are a few years away. So yeah, the wins are there, but it's just 104 is just or 103 and a half. Just
Yeah,
is such a high number.
astronomical. So
right,
many
and so
injuries can happen too.
right, and Clayton Kershaw's getting old. Like yeah, there's just so many ifs. But 103, like let's just say 100 for the Dodgers to win. The Padres are probably right up there, like 88 to 90 at least. And then
94. No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
no, I'm saying like they'll probably at least win in that range. So that's you got to think that's the first wild card spot.
Yep.
And then the second wild card spot, like I think the NL East is going to be a crapshoot just because everyone's going to be beating up on each other.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be like
The Mets
the
and the
second
Braves.
place. Yeah, it's going to be those guys. I'm not buying the Phillies hype. The Nationals will be a lot better just given what they've added and
Just because they took
full
every
season.
Cubs player
Right. Yeah.
And they have
Washington
Starlin
Cubs.
Castro in their lineup.
and Davey Martinez as their manager.
Yeah, the Washington Cubs, baby.
Yeah, seriously.
And so like, but yeah, like 85 will at least get them in the conversation. And like, that's not to say that they won't win like two or like give it plus or -3. Like that's, you're right in the conversation for a wild card. And in a 1-game playoff, like as scary as the Padres look, like 1-game playoff, like Kyle Hendricks throws a gem, like you're right in the NLDS.
Yeah, I mean, and with all the negative talk about the Cubs this offseason and kind of where they've landed heading into the season, you got to just be happy that for them to finish the season competing and fighting for a playoff spot. That's really all you can ask for.
And to be honest, like let's say they get 88, that's not, I think 88 could win the division, right? Like
Yep.
the Cardinals, it's like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and that's about it. Like,
Right.
Like there's not much offense. Jack Flaherty's, as good of an ace as you're going to get, but Adam Wainwright, we'll see, like he's older and in a full season, we'll see what kind of happens there. Yeah. Same thing with Yadi Molina. The Brewers are really interesting because they kind of like, the Brewers are always weird in the sense that like, it's like they scrape together like loose parts.
Yep.
And then like at the end, it's like, all right, we're right in it. Like let's get all these like these other loose pieces that we need, and we'll be right in it. And
like Dan
September,
Vogelbach.
Right. And in September they'll go like 25-5 or whatever and make the wild card. Like
He looks like he's on the Eric Thames plan.
Yeah. And
he just looks like he's filled with helium.
Yeah.
He really does. He is
Someone blew him
a big
up.
man. He is.
One more little tidbit about the Cubs before we go that I'll give you. In odd years, Wilson Contreras hits 270 plus with 20 plus home runs. And,
These are the facts that we need.
and it's an odd year. So
Last time I checked, it's 2021. Let's go.
It's like the Giants always won World Series in even years.
exactly.
2010, 2012,
Believe in.
2014.
So Andy, thanks a ton for coming on the show. We really appreciate having you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Your analysis was great. It was great to talk Cubs with you. We hope to have you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, let me know.
And check them out at MarqueeSportsNetwork.com.
Yep.
Pat Hughes pumped his story today on the broadcast.
He did. I have a good one on Kyle's Boyle, DeMar Vargas coming out this week. So
that's sweet. How good did it feel to hear Pat Hughes' voice talking about your story?
So funny story, right? So I'm flipping really quick. I'm flipping between the Cubs, the Players Championship, and the Big Ten Championship. And as I'm flipping back to the Cubs game, Kyle texts me. He goes, "Dude, Pat Hughes just read your story." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like I just missed that."
Yeah.
So I don't even know what it's like.
I'm sure they've got it recorded somewhere.
He sent me a recording, and I'll actually listen to it later. But
there you go.
Kind of missed out on it.
All right. Well, yeah, we're actually in a sneak preview. We're interviewing Jim Mcmahon this week, so you can expect him on the show at some point within the
not to
week
one
or
up
so.
there at all, Andy.
Slight upgrade.
Hey, drop your Twitter handle one time for everyone that's listening.
A Martinez _11 on Twitter.
Yep. So follow him. Follow us at Shy Sports Day, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Go Cubs.